Welcome everyone to Dead Talk Live, and tonight we are being joined by one of the co-founders of Legion M, Jeff Annison. Now, Paul was supposed to be with us as well, Jeff's partner, Paul Scanlon, but he could not make it, so we're stuck with Jeff tonight.
You're
But
stuck with me,
we're
although,
stuck
like
with
I
Jeff.
said, I'm by far the better looking of the two. So, congratulations.
As I was telling you, Jeff, thank you for coming on. I'm very excited to talk to you and find out more about Legion M. So the first question that I actually have, you and Paul started this in 2016. When it comes to the partnership between you and Paul, is one more stronger in the business sense and another one in the creative sense, or are both of you equally, talented in both business and the creative side?
That's a great question. To be honest, Paul and I really complement each other well. This is the third startup that we've done together. The first one we started up back in 1999. And so, we've been working together for over 20 years now
Wow.
through the first startup that we did was a tech startup that was very successful. We were the first ones in the world to put live television on a cell phone back in 2003,
Nice.
at a time where there were little tiny flip phones and the screens were super small,
I
and
remember.
most people told us it was a terrible idea. We literally had big executives telling us this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Nobody is ever going to watch TV on a phone.
Look at
And
today's world.
Yeah, well, a few years later, we ended up winning an Emmy Award for innovation because we were literally one of the first in the world to do it. And today, honestly, I mean, my kids are more likely to watch a movie on their phone than they are in a theater, which is anyway. So we've been through that, which was a lot of ups and downs. Anytime you're in a startup, there's all sorts of ups and downs. And then, we did another startup that was in business for 8 years and ended poorly, meaning that, we were in business for 8 years and we, made a few $1,000,000 in revenue. We had people gainfully employed during that time. So, I mean, in the sense of contributing to society, it did something, but it was a startup and it just never achieved escape velocity. So we've won together and we've lost together. And so, given the fact that it's been 20 years, honestly, it's kind of like we're an old married couple. And to answer your question, it's all about, like, choosing a startup partner is like literally like choosing a life partner. You
Yeah.
need someone that complements you. You need someone that brings out the best in you and makes you the best person that you are. And I think that that's kind of what we do. So we both have our own unique strengths and weaknesses, but at the end of the day, we both we're fairly interchangeable. Like an interview like this, like, honestly, you probably would get the same answer if it was him.
So I'm going to explain my idea of Legion M. There are a lot of people
Okay.
who have this question, and I want you to jump in afterwards and fill in the blanks.
All right.
Legion M is a fan owned production company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's not it's not a public company. It's not traded on the stock market. It is a
Correct.
private company, but fan contributions are what fund it. Now, beyond that, a lot of people have questions. So, how would you describe Legion M to somebody?
Yeah, of course. So we're the first fan-owned entertainment company, and what that means is that like thousands of other entertainment companies, we develop, produce, market, distribute film and TV shows. And you called us a production company, which I think is probably the most accurate descriptor. But we've actually been involved with every facet of film development and now television, or films and now television projects. And so that includes developing new ideas like a traditional production company was, trying to package them and sell them. But we have also, in some cases, acted as a financier where we're aggregating the money that people have invested in Legion M and turning around and investing in other projects. We've also acted as a distributor. We partnered with Screen Media a couple of years ago to buy the rights rights to a film that we found at Sundance, and we own the North American distribution rights for the next 20 years,
Wow.
and work in that capacity. So it's kind of all aspects of the spectrum of entertainment. But what makes us unique is the fact that we're the first one built to be owned by fans. And so what that means is that people invest in the company. So this isn't like Kickstarter where you're backing something, which is a donation in exchange for, having your name in the credits or getting a T-shirt or helping make something that you're passionate part of. You're actually an investor in the company, which means that if we're successful, you own equity in the company. And we tell people it's like investing in Disney back when it was just Walt and Roy. If we go on to become successful, you actually own a piece of that.
So let's break that down now to deeper levels. Let's talk about the financing part. You said you develop projects. Are you also open to people pitching you scripts?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, what I should say is this. We definitely are. But we have a unique challenge and opportunity at the same time, which is the fact that we are owned by fans. And we know that there are a lot of people that invest in Legion M invest because they're passionate about this industry. There's a lot of industry people that invest in Legion M because they love the idea of a fan-owned entertainment company. They love the idea of, a company that's trying to change some of the ways that things are done. And so, we don't, for example, we can't accept unsolicited scripts, right? And that's pretty standard. Like pretty much every production company is like that, and partly for our protection, partly for the production of the people that want to pitch us ideas, and also partly just because of the sheer magnitude of it. We have a sign up list where people can tell us if they're interested in being alerted when we have an open submission for some project or other. And there's thousands of people on it. And so, if you think of the logistics, we're a small 8-person company. And so, to read a script, takes a few hours. And if you're going to do any sort of analysis or feedback or that sort of thing, it can take, considerably more. And so, we have to, figure out ways to kind of manage that. So that said, we are, we do talk with, or we do receive pitches all the time. If you've got some connection to the company, if you've got an agent or a manager, or, honestly, even if you bump into one of us at a Comic-Con, Terry Luberoff is our head of development. She is renowned for that. And that's the part of the job that she loves. We'll go to a Comic-Con. We spend all weekend there. And, if you talk to her, if you come up to her after a panel or, hang out with us on a live stream, she'll listen to a pitch. And, she's really good at giving honest feedback. If this is something that, we'd be interested in, then she'll, take it to the next level. If not, she'll give you, honest feedback and advice as far as like, well, here's what I would suggest, maybe someplace else you could take it, or what would make it interesting for Legion M.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Kickstarter earlier. A lot of people confuse Legion M with crowdfunding. That is absolutely not the case. Am I correct?
Well, we are equity crowdfunding. Like that's the technical name for it. So, whereas Kickstarter is what's called rewards-based crowdfunding, and GoFundMe and Indiegogo and that sort of stuff. And it's literally, the distinction is whether you can own equity and own stock in the project where there's some opportunity for a financial return. And this is brand new. Like this wasn't even possible until 2016. In fact, the whole reason that we launched the company was because there were these new disruptive equity crowdfunding laws that were coming along. And we realized that created like literally a once in a lifetime opportunity, because it was changing securities laws that had been on the books since the Great Depression, and, made this possible. So I don't know that we can claim to be the first one to have thought of the idea of a fan-owned company, but we happen to be around at the exact moment in time where that became possible. And, we jumped on it. And, that was 2016. So, almost 6 years ago.
Now, you mentioned the SEC. Now, I know when it comes to equity funding, where you're literally sort of selling a piece of the company. It doesn't have to be on the public market on Wall Street. There is some SEC oversight. So how do you guys do it? A fan wants to invest. What kind of equity are they getting? Are they, when a fan invests money, are they investing in a particular project that you guys are advertising, or are they investing in the entire company?
Yeah, it's a great question. So they are investing in the entire company. So, to use the Disney analogy, you're investing in Walt Disney Corporation, not Snow White,
Yeah.
their first feature film. And the whole reason for that is, the whole reason that Legion M exists is because we believe that when fans unite, we have the power to shape the future of Hollywood. Like, if you think about it, every dollar in the entertainment industry comes from people like you and me.
Yeah.
And it's either from our watching it, the eyeballs that are going to get it, the advertising revenue, or the dollars out of our pocket that are going to buy the tickets. And so individually, each one of us is just a consumer. But when we unite, we have enormous power. So the M in our logo, I pointed over the wrong shoulder. You can see the M with a bar over it is actually the Roman numeral for 1 million. And so it's baked into our logo because our long-term goal is to unite 1 million fans as shareholders of the company. Mm-hmm. And what we believe is that if we can do that, first of all, we would have hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in projects and develop projects and all that. But more importantly, we'd have 1 million people that are emotionally and financially invested in the projects that we do. So we have a movie that comes out.
And what in the industry is called putting some skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's really, I mean, at the end of the day, we live in such a unique time in film and television, because if you think about it, it's only been within our lifetimes that content has gone from this, right, where it used to be 3 channels and movie theaters, exactly, to this, where YouTube is producing more content that you could watch probably in a lifetime every single day. Wow. And the number of channels are exploding. And so in this world where literally content is a commodity, it is around, we can pluck it out of the air with our cell phone and watch anything that we want to at any time, right? So it is a pure commodity that's all around us. What's valuable is our attention, because at the end of the day, we decide what we're going to watch, and that determines what succeeds and what fails. And so the idea is that if you own a stake in this company called Legion M and they are producing a movie, you're more likely to care about it and, or at least know about it. And because of the fact that we work really hard to open the gates of Hollywood. And so, when we get in on a movie, we want to bring fans along for the ride, and we want to take you on set, sometimes literally on set, where we have opportunities for people to come do set visits and that sort of thing. But other times, virtually by doing live streams with the cast and crew and, all the BTS stuff. And so by the time that movie comes out, it's our movie, and that is the whole idea behind Legion M. We believe that if you can unite enough fans like that, I mean, our long-term goal is 1 million, but even we're at about 35,000 investors right now, and I think the power that comes from that has the potential to be enormous.
Before I get to my next question, I want to ask you how many titles feature. Let's just focus on feature films. How many feature films are under the Legion M logo right now?
That's a great question. I would say that there's probably about 8 or 10 that we have been involved with in some capacity. And I just want to be clear. In some cases, it's because we've made an investment in that film. And sometimes, especially the early ones, it was a relatively small investment. So Colossal was our first film that has starred Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis, and is an amazing movie. Oh, yeah. We had nothing to do with producing that movie. We saw the movie. We were fortunate enough to be asked by Neon the distributor, right? The people that brought
Mm-hmm.
us Parasites
Yeah.
and I, Tanya and Colossal was literally their first film as a distribution company. They invited us to join them in the release of it. And we made a small investment in the release of that project. And we were just thrilled because it was such a great representation of what we thought that Legion M represented.
So
So
you were
that's where
part
we
of the distribution side.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And working on release, we organized meetups. We worked with Fawn Davis, who's an amazing special effects creator, to create some colossal like masks that we had two of them, one in New York and one in LA, that would go to the meetups. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of online marketing for them. And back then, the Legion was literally about 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And so, we were just kind of cutting our teeth. But that's where we started. Take that all the way up to today. We just wrapped photography. In fact, actually, we're just getting our first rough cut in of a movie called The Man in the White Van, which is a true crime thriller. It stars Sean Astin and Breck Basinger, Ali Larder, Madison Wolfe, and it's literally the story of a young girl who's being, harassed and followed by a serial killer in a white van, and it's all based on a true story that is actually the origin of kind of the man in the white van trope that we all hear about. And so, in that case, that movie completely exists because of Legion M. We helped develop the script with the screenwriter and director, Warren Skeels. The financing for that film is provided by a third party, Garrison Films, that financed the entire thing. And we, Terry Luberoff, our head of content, the one I mentioned earlier, she was on set in Shreveport, Louisiana for almost 3 months producing the film. And so, that's kind of the trajectory that we've been on. In between those two endpoints, there's been, like I said, maybe another 7 or 9 other films that, ranging from Kevin Smith's Jay and Silent Bob reboot. We worked with Searchlight for Tolkien. We worked with the film that I mentioned that we bought at Sundance was Memory: The Origins of Alien, which is a documentary about Alien, an amazing documentary. And so we worked with Dean Devlin on Bad Samaritan.
Yeah. Now, is Legion M's eventual goal to, without any outside help, within reason, obviously, but to do a film under your own finance, production, under the Legion M banner being the main production company? Is that something that you guys are going for? Or do you want to be like what is going on now with many other contributing companies, whether it's developing screenplays, helping out with production, or whatnot? Is your goal to eventually start, when the money gets there, to start putting out Legion M productions to the people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think ultimately, yeah, that's the most powerful position to be in. When you've got the money to finance films, then you can kind of write your own tickets. Until then, we've raised a total of a little over $15 million as a company, which is
that from the fan investments?
Yes, yeah, all entirely from fans. It's about 35,000 fans. Nice. And so that's a lot lot of money, except when it comes to Hollywood, right?
It goes $50 million.
Is not that much when you're talking about film budgets. And so we have been very strategic in how we bring those assets to bear. And so, for example, we've made investments in films where we helped finance Mandy, great example with Nicolas Cage, right? Yeah. We partnered with SpectraVision. We provided equity finance that was specifically used to finance the soundtrack by Johan Johansson, which is an amazing part of that movie. And unfortunately, sadly, one of Johan's last works before he passed away. But so we do that. But, to be honest, we recently, I mentioned the fact that we recently produced this film. based entirely on third-party finance. We also just sold our first series to a streamer, which is a huge step for us. We believe it's a huge inflection point at the company, because if you look at Hollywood, the number of people that have projects that they'd love to sell to a streamer is this big. The number of people that have actually been able to sell something to a streamer is much smaller. And the fact that we were able to sell this series, we can't say who it is or what it is yet because of all the NDAs. It's expected to come out in 2023. I can say that like it's a name brand streamer. It's somebody that you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that to answer your question, we are looking for ways to harness the power of fandom. That's what makes us unique. That's what separates us from every other production company out there, is that we're the only one that's owned by 35,000 fans. So we're always looking for ways that we can harness the power of that to improve our odds, to put our finger on the scale and make things more successful. And so, like I said, we've been involved with literally every aspect, from development to marketing and release of the cycle. And I expect that we'll continue to do that and continue to explore and just find new ways that we can harness the power of fans.
That is excellent. So obviously in entertainment, what's really needed is it's the people and the connections that you build along the way. I've been doing this just shy of 2 years, and I have made hundreds of connections, from network executives to filmmakers, actors. It's been such an amazing experience. So the connections that you make along the way really matter. Would you say Legion M has made some pretty solid connections in terms of financing? So if you guys develop an idea, you find a script that you guys really believe in, you have your set of people that you can turn to try to get something financed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've made a lot of great connections. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends. The model is a little bit different, obviously, for television than it is for feature films. But when we started this company 6 years ago, it was really just an idea and this concept. And Paul and I had, because of Moby TV, that's the company where we put live TV on cell phones, we had to license and distribute networks. And we actually created some of our own channels, which meant dealing directly with content producers. But at the end of the day, we came to Hollywood with not particularly strong network of connections when it comes to things that are important, like financiers, showrunners, directors, talent, that sort of stuff. Since then, we've compiled an amazing advisory board. Dean Devlin, who was he was the creator of Stargate and Independence Day. So literally $1 billion producer. Michael Uslan, who produced all the Batman movies starting back in 1989. He produced, he's somebody that we've worked closely with. William Shatner just joined our advisory board, which was a huge, wonderful story. We met him, we literally met him at a Comic-Con. And we were interested in talking to him about a project that we had. And he politely heard us out on the project. He ultimately had to pass because he had a conflict with another project that he was doing. But when we told him this idea of a fan-owned company, he was like, that's genius. And so, we had a couple other calls, and the next thing we know, he joined our advisory board. Nice. And so I feel like that's been a huge, again, that's one of the powers of being fan owned is, it literally opens doors for us.
Yeah.
If you look back, one of our very first advisors of the company was Stan Lee. And we did a couple projects with Stan Lee and Kevin Smith. This was back when the Legion was only a couple thousand people.
Wow.
We had no money. We had no reputations in Hollywood. But Stan and Kevin, who are both people that understand the power of fans, they dug what we're doing. And so it's fundamentally different when you go to someone like Stan Lee or William Shatner that literally has their pick of whatever project they want to do. And if I went to them, if Paul and I went to them and we're like, hey, we've got this project for you, and we're all going to make so much money, and you're going to make so much money, and that's great. Versus us coming to him saying, we represent 35,000 fans that have pooled their money because we want to make this project happen.
Yeah.
Like we bat way out of our league when it comes to getting close to people. So, at the end of the day, we're 6 years in. I think that our network is growing and expanding. Every project that we do is a stepping stone to the next. Again, I feel like that's one of the things that's really important is, you've got to build over time. When you start with a startup, you literally have nothing. And, we want to produce. You asked, like, do we want to of course, yeah, we want to finance $100 million films and, be able to release them. But you don't start with that.
No.
We started back when we had 3,000 people. I mentioned Colossal. Part of the reason why that movie was so important for us is because at the time we had just raised $1 million on this crazy idea of a fan-owned company. And, but people were like, $1 million is nothing. No. All you're going to be able to do is like super micro budget films. And, we're like, no, like that's not what we want to do. We feel like this can change Hollywood. And so being able to show people Legion M is involved with an Anne Hathaway movie and, a big budget movie that with critical acclaim that's showing in theaters around the country, like that was really pivotal for us because it allowed us to then build from that. And that's what got us in the door talking to Dean Devlin, and then that's what got us in the door over, the next one. And so it's just about that. It's like, I feel like Hollywood is like, a lot of other industries that when we started that company in 2000, putting TV on a cell phone, we had no. basis in the cell phone industry or the television, but you just, you figure it out and you string things together.
And I totally understand it because even though we're doing separate things, your guys' path and similar to my path sound very much the same because when I first started this, I don't have an uncle in Hollywood. I didn't know I was just a fan. And I knew, though, that it's about gaining legitimacy. That was what is the most important thing to me. Even I've gained legitimacy in the entertainment industry. That has been accomplished. But to get there, like you said, for me, it was getting the first guest and then led to the second guest and then it steamrolls and you work day and night to build up your legitimacy, proving to the entertainment industry that you're not some fluke, you're not going to embarrass people, you're serious about the craft, you're serious about the industry, and then people are going to start taking you seriously. And it opens, one door opens another, and then it opens another. And so I totally understand what you just said. That's exactly how Hollywood works. It's about gaining legitimacy and gaining respect. With all that being said, there are obstacles along the way. Everybody has to face them, and you got to work your way around them. You got to outthink the obstacles. That's my motto. Whatever obstacle comes up, you got to outthink the obstacle. Okay. So, what obstacles has Legion M had to face that you guys had to really get innovative and try to work around?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that, like I said, our whole purpose and what we spend our time talking about is how we can harness this power of fandom to, the power of the Legion, to create competitive advantages where none exist. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, and you clearly cut from the same cloth because you're having to do the exact same thing that we're having to do in starting from nothing and building to something. So that's always the challenge. And so the way that we tend to face it at Legion M is figuring out like, okay, well, again, what makes us different? We're owned by 35,000 people. So a perfect example is this project that we have called Film Scout. So we go to Sundance, where we've been the last 2 years. It's been virtual, but so for like 5 years now. And the purpose of us going is to find if there are any films that we could get involved with. And we a few years ago we developed this product called Film Scout. And if you think about Sundance, it's a really unique challenge because there are literally generally over 100 films playing at Sundance, and a very large number of those may have some sort of distribution rights available or may be already owned by a distributor that we've got a relationship with or could have a relationship with and might be interested in partnering with Legion M on the release of it. And so, but at the same time, you only have a very small group of people. Like I said, we're an 8-person company. And so even trying to analyze 100 films and figure out like what film should we even look at, right, is a monumental challenge. Keep in mind, these are brand new films. When we were there with Mandy, we were, like I said, an equity investor in Mandy. So we were there when it premiered at Sundance. And I still remember they flew the final cut of the movie from a editing bay in Belgium to a parking lot, a Starbucks parking lot in Park City, to hand it to the projectionist who was going to be playing it at the premiere. So, these films are brand new. There's nobody's seen them. So there's no buzz that you can kind of count on. Anyway, so ultimately what we decided to do was figure out how we could harness the power of our community. And we created this game called Film Scout, which is an app. You can download it on your phone, on iOS and Android. It allows you from anywhere in the world to log in and see the films that are playing. Like I said, the whole thing is gamified, and you give us your opinions as to which films you're interested in, as well as your predictions of which films you think will be most successful. So we take all that in as data, and your opinions on what you like or dislike. I mean, obviously your opinions are just as valid as my opinions, but your predictions as to what's going to be most successful within the app, that's something that we can grade. So we evaluate all that. At the end, we release a leaderboard that shows you just how good you were at predicting, and seeing how you stack up with everybody else in the Legion. And then we invite the top 5% of that to join our Elite Scout program. And these people then help us when we're trying to evaluate new products or new projects, because they've demonstrated an ability to predict what the broader group will think. And so, that's a very unique response to a common problem that any production company would face. And so, we've got that going on in Film Scout. At the same time, we generally have hundreds of Legion M investors that are in Park City, or this year, it was even more because of the fact that it was virtual, that will watch the movies and give us their opinions, also in Film Scout. So at the end of the day, when we're trying to decide what movies we want to focus on, it's not my opinion versus Paul's opinion versus somebody else's. We've synthesized thousands of opinions from fans around the world to tell us what are the cluster of movies we're interested in. Then when we want to say like, oh, was that a good movie? How did it work out? We've got hundreds of people that are boots on the ground that can watch the movies, rate and review them. So again, it provides us data to make decisions that another company, Paul and Jeff Entertainment Incorporated, would not have. And so that's just an example of the way that we tend to view these problems and try and tackle them.
Now, Film Scout, the app, is it just available to investors or is it open to everybody?
No, it's open to everyone. And that's actually an important thing to know, is that anybody can join Legion M for free, right? So you can just go to legionm.com, you can sign up. There's literally no cost or obligation. That allows you to join the Legion. It gets you on our mailing list for all of our events and all of our special, cool things. And we've done some amazing events, not over the past couple of years, of course, because of COVID, but
yeah.
We hosted a Stan Lee party, and we've had, red carpet premiere and all sorts of amazing events that we've done. And so you can join that for free. It's a great way to get to know what Legion M is about. If people want to invest in Legion M, that's wonderful, but that's a private decision.
Yeah.
And we feel like there's people out there that maybe can't afford to, or maybe they're just not sure. And so it's wide open. Anybody can join for free and be a part of it if you just believe in this idea of a fan-owned company. And then if you decide that you want to make an investment because you want to own a piece of it, you can do that as well. So to answer your question, though, Film Scout is available. If you just search Legion and Film Scout, you could literally download it right now
Very
on
nice.
Android or iOS, because we just finished Sundance, and we're just about to launch South by. This will be the first year that we've done South by Southwest on Film Scout.
Very nice. So let's say the fans pick a movie. Let's say it has been picked up for distribution in North America. And Legion M wants to get involved somehow. So would you guys do something like rent out a theater and do a red carpet premiere? How would Legion M go about in getting involved and helping out the distributor to get the Legion M name involved into the distribution process?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's two specific cases that I can talk about. The first one is, I mentioned Memory: The Origins of Alien. That's the film that we bought the distribution rights for
Mm-hmm.
at Sundance. And that was all based on Film Scout data. So we partnered with a company called Screen Media, and we pooled our money, and 50-50 we bought the North American distribution rights. We own them for the next 20 years. We released it in theaters. It's streaming now on Crackle. It's available for rent everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never seen it, it's a wonderful documentary about the cultural impact of the movie Alien and the forces that formed it, and the impact that it had afterwards, as well as some of the fun stories around the making of it. It's a really thoughtful, smart documentary. It's very highly rated. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you're a fan of the film Alien, even if you're not a fan of the film Alien, like it's a really compelling story. And after you watch it, the first thing you're going to want to do is go watch Alien, and then you'll see it in a completely different light.
It's one of the
Anyway,
classics.
yeah, no, it was an incredible. So that one we literally bought the distribution rights to. The other project that ended up coming out of Sundance was Save Yourselves, which is a science fiction comedy from 2 years ago. That again, very highly regarded on Rotten Tomatoes. Bleecker Street bought the rights to that at Sundance, but our film scouts had chosen it, and it had fared so well that we reached out to Bleecker Street, and then we partnered with them on the release. And so we have some upside in that movie for, I want to say it's the first 2 or 3 years of its lifespan. And we did a bunch of meetups around it. We did a whole merchandise line around it. We did a bunch of online stuff with the cast and the writer director couples and all that sort of stuff.
Wow, that is really it's very innovative, because I mean it's not like, okay, it's under distribution, let's move on to the next thing and see what we can do. You guys work with the distributor and find innovative ways to not only get involved and make money, but to promote the movie as well. So I think that's really genius on all the different approaches that you guys take. Now, if you had to pick between the production and the distribution side, where do you see Legion M in the future heading more towards? More towards production or leaning more into the distribution?
I think that we'll always have, potentially a foot in both areas. I can tell you, like, as a company, we're really focused more on development, which is on the production side. So,
Yeah.
we're in after selling this first series to a streamer and having produced this film, and we're really excited for this film to come out, because I think it's going to show the chops that we've got in that category. It's really opened a lot of doors for us. And as we've looked at it, the ability to harness the power of a legion of fans to market and promote and release films, I think, is pretty obvious to everyone. And we've kind of established a lot of the stuff and done a lot of experiments to see what works and what doesn't work. But where I'm really interested in is figuring out ways that we can harness the power of a community in the development process. And so we've got some really interesting ideas. For a company that is, again, we've raised $15 million total. So we're not at a point where we can go out and buy any large films yet or anything like that. But, we've got your money you can make smaller bets on the development side because it doesn't cost that much. They're more speculative, meaning that the odds of success are, lower, right? Because for every 10 projects you develop, probably 9 of them will never end up getting made. But every single project that you're involved with, when it comes to the production side, is a swing for the fence. Yeah. And you're hoping to get a hit, or you're hoping to get a franchise, even better, or something that can lead to something else.
The odds are really against you.
Yeah, the odds are totally against you. But again, that's the same thing with the startup. Like we tell people, when you invest in Legion M, there's a whole watch before investing video where we talk about the fact that at the end of the day, startups are inherently, statistically, the most likely outcome of investing in Legion M is that you're going to lose your investment.
Oh, yeah. It's a
because
gamble.
Most startups fail. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that the ones that do succeed can go on and change the world. And if you
look at Netflix.
Yeah, if you were smart enough or dumb enough to invest in Netflix back when it was, forget about
putting
when it was
DVDs in the mail,
Yeah. Think about when it was floundering, when people were talking about the fact streaming to, that's never going to work. The studios own all the content. You guys are never going to be able to break through. And they flipped the script, and they are now the largest content producer. They have become the 800-pound gorilla in Hollywood.
And a lot of people don't remember that when Netflix introduced streaming, their original lineup, I'm sorry, I love Netflix, it sucked.
Yeah, no.
It was a bunch of B movies.
It totally was. And what Netflix did, which was genius at the time, was recognize that the only way that they were ever going to be able to be successful was to do their own production and produce their own. And at the time, I still remember when that seemed like a crazy idea. And you're like, what? They're going to do Netflix original productions? I don't get it. How does that ROI out? But again, today,
especially on an SVOD, on a streaming video on demand service where you're getting, you need more subscribers. Yeah. And they're sort of, I don't know if you follow their business reports, their rate of growth slowed down the last quarter, and they're being urged by investors to develop deeper into markets like India, to expand further out. They're still growing, but not at the crazy pace they were a year or two ago. Because eventually you're going to hit some kind of a ceiling, okay? Yeah. And revenue is going to max out. So you always got to be at least one step ahead of the game and think of what are you going to do to combat that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I don't know what they're, I don't follow them that closely as far as their business stuff. I know they're getting into games. Yeah. Everybody wants to be the Netflix of video games. Yeah. And I think that, maybe it'll be Netflix or, there's also, it's interesting because Paul and I, when we started Moby TV, and there was one other guy, and back in the days when people thought that watching TV on a phone was a crazy idea, it literally was a crazy idea. Back then, back in 2003, you remember the only place that you watched TV was on a television, and they were all connected to a cable or a satellite dish. There was no such thing as streaming, to your computer. And so if you think, and that was just less than 20 years ago. So how much the world has changed since then. Think of all the companies that have come and gone, and now this next battle is the streaming wars of all these myriad of streamers and they'll end up being consolidated. The fact
That's
is,
exactly what I
technology,
thought too.
yeah, technological change is not slowing. It's
No.
never going to stop. It
No.
will only continue to accelerate. And business culture and consumer landscape is only going to continue to change. And so I think that one of the things that we've recognized about Legion M is at the end of the day, the two endpoints of content are the consumer and the creator. And
Exactly.
everything in between, whether you're watching black and white movies or streaming or virtual reality, or you're buying it in a bundle or you're buying it a la carte, all that sort of stuff that stuff is going to continue to change forever.
Yeah.
But the idea of a company owned by the fans, the people on the end point of this, they are always going to be the most important part of this equation, because they are responsible for every dollar in the entertainment industry. And so
Abs-
that's why we think that a company owned by fans has the potential to be so revolutionary.
Absolutely. Before we go, I just want to talk about one more thing. You mentioned development, and you guys are really big on development. How does that work at Legion M? Do you guys have a set group of writers that you work with to come up with ideas, and then you try to sell that to a huge streaming service, a small streaming service, a network, a studio, and whatnot? How does the development work at Legion M? Is it you working with writers and then Legion M pitches it to whoever is willing to listen?
It's kind of all over the map, to be honest. Like, we're very opportunistic. Um, I think that a lot of it's, to develop something, you need to have IP. You need to have the creator, right? Whether it's the showrunner or the director, you need to have talent, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what you've got to ultimately package up in order to get something financed or to get it sold. And sometimes you don't need all three of those, but you probably
So
need at
you need the
least two of
talent
them.
already attached, even in the development stage.
Well, I mean, what I'm talking about there is really kind of packaging, but
Okay.
ultimately, that's the way that we look at the picture, is trying to develop that total package.
All right.
And so, like I said, you don't necessarily have to have all of those. We sold the series that we sold to a streamer did not have talent attached in the form of actors, but it did have a great showrunner, and it did have a great piece of IP behind it, and that's what allowed us to sell that.
For our
In the case,
viewers who don't know, IP is intellectual property.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We live in a
and
world of acronyms, and I just want to make sure
yeah,
everybody
no, no, no. I
understands.
appreciate I
Uh,
appreciate you doing that, because like it's easy to just kind of start
yeah, yeah.
babble speaking, but anyway, so for us, uh, we're a small company, and so we're constantly looking for ways that we can, you know, get the most efficiency, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, we're not going to be a company generally that's going to take a project on that requires a substantial amount of development work, like traditional development work, like the script needs to be rewritten,
Hmm.
and our team is going to do that. Or we might work with a writer to do it, but at the end of the day, we try and probably steer less into those sort of projects than into one where there's an amazing script and we need to connect it with the showrunner, and then it's going to be tweaked and evolved and developed in that way. But we can turn it around relatively easily and pitch it to a financier or pitch it to a network or something like that.
If you were to guess moving forward, do you see both the film industry and the television industry both equally continuing to grow, not one favored over another?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, when people talk about movies and the movie industry, you tend to think about theatrical releases.
But
And
that's changing.
yeah, well, I mean, but if you think about it, movies play on Netflix too, right?
Yeah.
So like the difference between episodic content and what we traditionally consider television, and movies is really a little bit more of a difference of format, I
Yeah.
think, in a lot of cases than it is like fundamentally. But it is interesting because the business models are very different
Hmm.
in a lot of cases. And, theatrical is a route, it is still a thing. I personally am hoping that it continues to be a thing. Like, I'm sure that it will. I mean, we're seeing enough signs with Spider-Man and that sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
movie theaters are not going away. I think that, it's unfortunate. They've been so hit so hard
With
by the
COVID.
pandemic,
Yeah.
which probably accelerated changes in the shift to online streaming. It probably just accelerated stuff by
It
5 years.
caught the studios really off guard.
Well, it did. I mean, it caught the world off guard,
Yeah.
but it's, like they were already in trouble because they were fighting, the fact that you can now watch, movies in your living room. And
Yeah.
so I think that, the theatrical industry I still think has tough times ahead. Hopefully they're through the worst of it as far as the pandemic goes, and they can kind of, get back to where it is, because we love theatrical. And I mean, the difference between watching a movie in a theater and watching it on your couch is they're fundamental and they're profound. It's the difference between listening to a CD and going to a concert.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Sometimes
an
when the
experience.
energy,
It's not even just about the movie. It's the whole experience of just
yeah, it's
going
the
to the theater.
community.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a collective shared, sort of thing. And so anyway, so we'll
absolutely.
see.
Jeff, the hour is up, man. You believe that hour just flew by?
Yeah, sorry, I talk
No,
and
I
talk.
loved it. I think we had a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing Legion M, what they do. Where can people find Legion M on the internet? What's the website?
It's real easy. It's legionm.com.
Okay,
You can find us on social media. We're Legion M official across, everything. So,
awesome. So,
yeah, come check it out. Come, like I said, you can join as a member for free. There's no cost or obligation. It's a great way to find out what it's all about, and be a part of something.
and you guys also, I've read, and when it comes to production of movies, you allow fans to like pick props or stuff like that. Is that true? Like,
We do a lot of stuff like that. When with the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, we architected set visits also for Arch Enemy, which was the Joe Manganiello film that we were executive producers on.
yeah,
Unfortunately, The Man in the White Van was shot, last October when COVID was hitting really
yeah,
hard, and so normally we would have literally opened that up like every day, had tours of people coming in because we can. And getting our investors in, all of our round eight investors who are investing right now get their name in the credits of that movie.
yeah.
And since we couldn't bring people actually on set, we had a person on set that collected a massive amount of behind the scenes, like how you make a movie, and interviews with the cast and the crew. And we're planning to release all that when we get a little bit closer to the film. So,
Nice.
but yeah, we're always trying to figure out ways. In Arch Enemy, the director needed a car for the film, for the hero of the movie to drive. And he had an idea in his mind. He wanted to have a late model, Dodge Challenger, I think.
Hmm.
And so, he was going to rent one, but we're like, well, hey, why don't we go out to our Legion and see if anybody has one that they want to, be in the movie? Because that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. Get your car in the movie. And so we have this submission page for that, as well as like a dozen other things. And we had a whole bunch of submissions, and the director ended up finding a car that was not at all what he was looking for, but was way better. It's like a 70s era El Camino,
Wow.
and was just perfect for the role. So he literally cast that car. And so the guy who owns that car, who was a mechanic, came out and wrangled the car on set for, I think it was probably 3 or 4 days or maybe a week of shoot, for the scenes that the car was in. And it actually ended up completely changing the trajectory of his life, because he loved it so much. And now that he had gotten a foot in the door and made some connections, he was able to get some other gigs. And he is now, like, that's what he does. He does car wrangling. He's learning stunts because he wants to do stunts.
That is
When we get
awesome.
Yeah, when we did the man in the white van, he was the one that we had a very specific, we need a 1973 Ford Econoline van. And, it's not the easiest thing to find, but he found one, and, it needed some work done to it, and both aesthetic and mechanical, and he managed all that, and he came out and was on set, as a paid crew member, as the wrangler of the car. And so, yeah, we work really hard to try and, like I said, open the gates of Hollywood and figure out how to let people in.
That's awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all this
Thank you for
great
having me. This has
information.
been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. Thank you to our viewers for watching this live and those who will watch this later on. On behalf of co-founder Jeff Annison and Paul Scanlon, who is not here, but let's include him as well. Stay safe and stay walking, guys. Good night.